recording on this computer, and I see we have some people in the Zoom room. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm Danette Edwards. I am the founder of Daze Professional Development Group. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we are here with Luke Hill, and he is going to present for us the new normal for interviews. Virtual interviews are becoming the key tool for hiring, all right? So, Luke, I'm going to tell you a little about Luke, and then I'm going to turn it over to him. Luke Hill has been in recruitment for shortly over 2 years. His first 2 years, he recruited military veterans for a skilled trade apprenticeship program, eventually becoming the head of the department, resulting in over 200 successful placements in 2 years. Wow. Okay. Then he moved into executive search, where he recruits high-level passive talent. Prior to his career in recruitment, Luke spent 4 years in the U.S. Marine Corps and is originally from Houston, Texas. Well, thank you for your service, Luke. I am about to turn it right over to you, and I'm just going to ask you to add anything that I left off before you start. I'm going to mute myself and stop my video.
All right. Thank you, Danette, for the introduction. Yeah, she pretty much covered most of what I would give for an introduction, I guess. So I'll go ahead and kind of kick it off. The reason I wanted to talk about the virtual interviews is because, just like Danette said, they are becoming kind of a huge piece of the hiring process now. They have been more and more common over the last few years anyway, and then now with Corona, it's probably most of what everyone is doing. During my time at my last role, I did a lot of virtual interviewing. Probably about half of our interviews were virtual because we did a lot of remote recruiting. So I've had a lot of experience conducting that kind of interview, and I felt like I just wanted to share some of the tips from me, from some of the mistakes I've seen people make or some of the things I've seen people do really well. And hopefully it can help someone. I'm going to cover things to do before, what you should do during, and what you should do afterwards. And with that, I'm going to kind of go right into the before. So when you're starting out, some of the questions that I've gotten from people about how to prepare before, they say, how do I prepare for it? Where should I set up? Should I dress like a normal interview? And then, how do I make sure that there's not any kind of distraction going on? So when you're preparing and getting your space ready, that's kind of the first thing I'm going to talk about is the space. You want to make sure that the room you're in, you want to make sure that it is quiet, that it's not, in the center of the house. You don't want to be, doing your virtual interview in your kitchen if you can avoid it. And then you want to make sure if anyone's home that you've notified them what's going on, and you just ask them to, be respectful of you having that interview going on, not be loud in the, other bedrooms or in the living room or whatever the case may be. You want to make sure that your background is free from distractions. So when I say that, I don't mean, you just need a blank wall. This room is blank because I haven't decorated it at all, but it's, you don't want to have it be too busy in the background because it can be a distraction for the interviewer. Just like if they've got something, running around going crazy behind them, it could be a distraction for you. And then if you can avoid it, try to do it I've done a few in where people were doing it from their car or from, outside in a park or something, and it just makes it hard to hear. It raises the amount of distraction going on. So if you can avoid doing it from a space like that, then try to do it from, a set up actual room. As far as what to wear, there's all this stuff going on. You see it on LinkedIn all the time. People are like, oh yeah, I love my Zoom calls because I don't have to wear pants or, whatever. I would definitely recommend still dressing the same way you would for your in-person interviews. So, and I recommend that for 2 reasons. It helps you with your professional appearance, but it also kind of helps you get into that frame of mind. If you dress yourself for an interview the same way that you would for your in-person one. You're going to get that kind of psychological thing going where you're prepping yourself mentally for it as well. That applies to everything. It's not just the dressing. If you want to make sure you still shower and all that kind of stuff, just like you would do if you were going to be working remotely. I always recommend too, just like you would again for an in-person, do some rehearsal as well. Kind of just walk through the key points that you want to hit beforehand, so that you can make sure that you're ready for it. The biggest thing that comes into play, I would say, is definitely your technology. Before you have your virtual interview, get your computer set up, test the camera, make sure it works, make sure you can hear. If you have a chance to do it, try to get on a call with just like a friend or a family member beforehand, just to make sure that you're coming through clearly, they're coming through clear, and there's not going to be a lot of, not big delays or anything going on with the transmission. And then go ahead and do your normal research. And what I always do for virtual stuff, when I need to kind of get some notes together on the company, I don't want to have it down on my desk in front of me where I'm going to be looking down. What I do with it is I try to, the way I've got my office at home set up, I've actually got a wall right behind the computer, and I set sticky notes across the top of it so that it's right over top of the camera. So it looks like I'm still looking at the person, but I'm, reading some notes as well. And then same thing again, just have your answers ready to go, any accomplishments that you want to make sure you cite, and any of your questions. And then I again, it's, either have it staged around the screen or somewhere around the camera. And then another trick that I actually learned is when you're going to be doing that beforehand, this is one I picked up off of one of the LinkedIn learning trainings I've done. But they recommend, if you've got like a picture of like a spouse or a family member, or even a pet or a child, if you've got one handy, put it behind your camera because it will naturally encourage a smile. So I try to keep a picture of my wife behind my computer when I can. During your interview, so when you are doing a virtual interview, there is additional factors that come into play that wouldn't be there during an in-person. Like when you're going through the computer, it's for me, I always feel like I have a harder time. I'm trying to think of the word. I feel like I have a harder time to let my personality come through, I guess would be the best way. So you just want to make sure that when you are going to be doing that, introduction, when they say, tell me about yourself, have that practiced, make sure that you have, that you're speaking clearly, and that you enunciate. If you are aware of any tics that you have, if you have pet words, anything like that, try to mitigate those as best you can. Again, just anything to kind of not be a distraction. And then when you're doing your research, I know that there's been several trainings on LinkedIn lately through Corona Daze. So if you do have a chance beforehand to look up your interviewers, if it's going to be multiple, if it's just one, whatever the case may be, try to see if you can't find some common interests. And when you are going through that kind of initial getting to know each other piece of the interview, go ahead and use that as an opportunity to build rapport. One of the things I always bring up is I like to fish. So if I can find somebody who likes to fish, then I'm going to talk about that with them. And, the big thing with that, people like to hire people that they like. So you want to get that going because it's a lot harder to develop that groundwork during a virtual interview than it is in-person. When you're communicating, again, same thing, just it all comes back down to when it's virtual, when you're going through technology, it makes it easier for you to, just become not as aware of your body language. So, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to how you're positioned and make sure that you're maintaining that focus on your camera and that you are maintaining, a good attentive posture. Again, you want to be clear and concise with your speech. Microphones just have this tendency to muffle what you're saying. So especially if you're having to use like a phone or an iPad. those I always have the most trouble with. And then when you're listening to to information being given to you, I always recommend just making sure during a virtual one to do a lot more of that summarization and response to things that are being said to you, because that does show more attention. When I have to take notes during a virtual interview, um, I try to keep my eyes still on the people talking and not down. Like I said earlier, same thing. Like when I have my notes on the wall, whatever I'm taking my notes on, I try to keep it handy close by. I've actually once or twice before asked if somebody minded if I recorded the audio and just had my phone set up next to it on mute with the microphone, just recording our conversation so that I could keep that information. It's looking like this is gonna be a pretty quick presentation. I'm gonna be doing a lot of Q&A with everyone after though. When you are going into the follow-up, that's probably the hardest part for me, I think, with the virtual. It's easy to kind of like, oh, okay, great, and then have I'm just gonna hang up the call. I always make a point to, when I get off of the call, I try to send every single person a thank you email, individually, not as a bulk thing. And then I will specifically mention something that they said, something that we talked about that we have in common. And then again, same thing that you would do with an in-person. You want to emphasize your accomplishments and experience and how that's going to be a valuable contribution to the team that you are applying to join. And then you want to make sure that you definitely know who your point of contact is for any updates, any questions you may have, and that you ask them what the follow-on steps are going to be for you. It's all about the confidence still, just like an in-person. You want to make sure that you're presenting yourself professionally and confidently to the people that are interviewing you. And it's so much more of a challenge. I know there's a lot more I could have covered. That's all I had that when I was going through those were the biggest things that I've seen as issues that have been run into, and I'm sure people have questions. So if anybody does, I'm going to actually open it up now back to questions, or if Danette has anything to add.
Okay, Luke, thank you. All right, so I have one question for you as a recruiter. Can you tell us any of your pet peeves when you are interviewing a candidate, whether it was virtual or before virtual, like one of the no's when you're interviewing?
I think for me, it's one of the biggest things for me was always body language, and that goes to both. Like I said, body language is easy to relax on while you're going through a virtual one as well. But in person too, it's somebody's got their arms crossed or looking off to the side or whatever. That's one thing. And then checking phones during an interview will always throw me. I do recommend, unless you're using it for something like recording, or it is the what you're using to do your virtual interview, when you're going to have a virtual, just leave it outside that room. Mine will typically sit on my couch in my living room while I'm in here. And then, yeah, I mean, again, I meant to mention it during the virtual with the body language. I had several candidates that I'd interviewed before who would like pick up their virtual interview while laying down.
Oh my goodness.
Like in their bed, and they'd be laying there and just like in pajamas. Or
Wow.
another one you run into with the phone is when people they'll hold it here and then they'll like set it up to here to hear you, and then I don't want to spend 30 minutes on an interview with you looking at your ear. I mean, you don't want to look at my ear for 30 minutes, I'm sure. So it's just kind of one of those things. And then another thing too, I mean, just again, with interviews, it's always going to come down to rapport. And a great piece of advice I got yesterday from somebody was, don't be afraid to dance. It's people hire people they like, people work with people they like. So if y'all are having that if you say, hey, I'm excited, it's Saturday, I'm going to go fishing after this, and they're like, oh yeah, I like to fish, don't like just cut it short. Y'all can keep that going. There's no harm in that. It's good to have that groundwork and that foundation.
All right. Okay. And then When you're when you're interviewing people, what type of questions do you like to receive from them?
I like to receive questions about some of the best ones that I can recommend to ask are uh, just in general, what would one I always ask, what would be my best way to prepare for this role, to come in and make an impact and be successful. Um, Another good one is what have people who've been successful in the past, what have their backgrounds looked like? What have they done to make themselves successful in this role? Um, and then asking about if the person who you're reporting to is so if let's say you're interviewing with the person who's going to be your manager's boss, some company structure interview processes like that. Ask them about the person you're going to be working directly for and the people you're going to be working with. Particularly now with virtual, there's a lot less of those come in and meet the team kind of things going on. So it's a good thing to kind of you want to make sure that you're going to get along with the people at that high level, but you want to make sure that the people to the left and right are going to be good as well.
Okay, thank you. And since you are a recruiter representing clients, what are your clients telling you that so this, you can take this anyway, either what is it that they're looking for? Like what are maybe the top 3 to 5 skills or characteristics that they're looking for in a candidate? And then the second piece of that is what is it that they're not able to find? What's been the most difficult for your clients to find?
Okay. Yeah. So I would say, I mean, it really that's a pretty broad one.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the industry and on the company, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd say the biggest things that people look for is they're looking for someone who not just can come in and say, oh, well, I have worked in this role before. Come in with just like with your resume, you want it to be results driven. You want to be able to produce numbers. You want to be able to cite the impact that you've had, and what those business results were from the things you've done. One of the recommendations you hear a lot for the method to answer questions is the STAR method: situation, task, action, and result. So kind of give that, we were in this boat. Here's what I was asked to do. Here's what I did. And this is the result that happened from it. That is always going to be a great response. And then I'd say, other than that, it's just always finding somebody who's one of my challenges, I guess, that I've had in the past with some of the old recruiting we did was with a lot of kind of entry level and construction level roles, that a lot of those people coming in that switched industries with it, they would say one thing and then not back it up. So,
Be able to back up
um,
what you can say.
and then I'd say really, as long as you understand, almost every major company out there has got some kind of mission statement. They've got their core values, and their purpose on their website. If you come into an interview understanding that and knowing what their mission is, come in and ask, don't just ask about the job description. Ask what, not what am I going to do in this job, but ask them what's the result you want from the next hire in this spot. What's the impact you want me to have? If you come in there with that and you can cite either through value validation project, like you would see coming out of, if you're familiar with Austin Belkak and Cultivated Culture, he always recommends those if you can. But whether it's with that or you have a past example that you can cite, like I have done X, Y, and Z resulting in, $9 million in sales or savings or whatever, if you can cite results like that align with the company's values, with what they want out of that hire, that's going to make a huge impact. And then again, rapport.
Rapport. Okay. So no pajamas. Oh my, yes, people are interviewing in pajamas. We had a presenter yesterday who said she was on a call with someone who took the call. They're out of the country, took it in her pajamas. This is to do business together. It wasn't an interview, but still, that is an interview. do business with you. And the first thing she thought was, wow, this is really ballsy of this woman to be in her pajamas. She said they were very nice pajamas, but she was in her pajamas. So people are doing that. So what I take away from what you've said is let the real you shine and be open
Yes.
and authentic. Okay.
Yes, and that is, I mean, I think just in business in general, that's the best approach. Just be yourself and let your actions and your experience speak for themselves. And again, it all comes back down to that adage: people do business with people they like, people work with people they like. And if you can let your personality shine through, it's definitely going to do it. With recruiting, the biggest thing, and specifically where I'm at now with Joseph Chris Partners, one of our biggest things is we are relationship driven. Um, and I really think, even beyond just recruiting, I think almost all business is relationship driven. I mean, that's common sense, I think. And you want to be able to open that door and start that up. It's, again, that's why I said you want to call back to something when you, um, I'm trying to think. When I interviewed, my last interview, I had was with my current company, and one of the executive partners, she drives a yellow Jeep, and I told her, I was like, hey, it's funny that I'd seen something on her LinkedIn about it. I was like, it's funny, my wife drives the same Jeep, and then we started talking and found out, my wife works at the company my wife works at. My now one of the executive partners where I work, she likes to go to that place and shop there and stuff. So
Wow.
it's,
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
just more of that, just developing rapport and kind of getting to know each other. They're based out of a part of town that I grew up in. So it's, the office is right there on Lake Houston. And I used to go fishing there a lot as a kid. And so we got to talking about that. And I've said it 5 times, I think, during it's people work with people they like. And if you can make that impression, and it might take a little bit more effort to do it during a virtual one, but if you can have that relationship with them, it's going to go, it's going to work wonders for you to be able to build rapport. I don't know. I think those are probably the biggest things, just the rapport and the results. If you can bring both of those things and align your values to the company's values, then you're going to be setting yourself up for some success.
Okay. I have a couple comments, and then I'll drop some questions. I'll give you some more questions. So look up the interviewer. Makes sense. Thank you. Thumbs up. And then I have Amy who says, hi, Luke, fellow Houstonian here. All right. So what is currently in high demand? Any industries, type of people? Is there any reoccurring theme as you're recruiting?
Um, you know, it depends. It's going to depend market to market for one. But one thing that's just been kind of pretty steady right now, real estate's pretty good, like the development side of that and construction side. Construction really, it had a sharp crash and then came right back almost immediately. They call it V-shaped recovery. And then really anything where there's like remote, anything where there's people doing the remote work now, those are all kind of booming. I'd have to look a little more at other industry trends outside of where I've been focused, but yeah, I know that. I mean, the housing market. I thought the housing market was gonna completely just
tank, right?
but it's booming. People are, it's interest rates are lower a lot of places, and you're running into a lot of people that are now working remote going, oh, hey, I need an additional room in my house. I don't have the space. Having to go, they're moving into bigger houses or moving into just different layouts. People not wanting to be in an apartment because they want to have something that they own. It just, there's a whole myriad of factors coming into play.
And I could actually see the more we go remote, that we're actually going to see more housing and more development, because people are going to realize, I don't need to live in Silicon Valley. I don't need to live in New York. I'm working remote. I want to live near the water, or I want to live near the mountains, and I can actually do that. And maybe there'll be like some housing booms in places that we never thought of. Maybe places people vacation, within the US. So
And
let's.
that's something I've seen a lot. Like a lot of there's a lot of very awesome, interesting discussions going on around where business is going over the next few years. You know, you don't have it's just like you said, tech people don't have to move to San Diego or San Francisco or Seattle. They can, live in Akron, or
Mm-hmm.
it's my mom is a school teacher, and she was spending part of her year last year working from, they've got a vacation home in central or east Texas kind of, but it's kind of the middle of nowhere, but she's got fast internet, so she was
She
able
could
to
go
teach
there,
her
yeah.
students with a pond behind her. Like,
Wow. Yeah. And I'm sure that we're going to see that as people are able to work, as we get more acclimated with working from home, that as people get themselves in more comfortable environments, I think they're going to be more productive. I'm calling that out. Like, that's my prediction.
and I can say at my last position, we were working remote, and um, most of the team's productivity shot through the roof working from
Hmm.
home, and I
Yeah.
was not expecting that when we made that shift. But I mean, even my own numbers went up, their numbers went up, everything went up, and me and my boss there had been talking about it, and we were like, "Hey, that's unexpected," and
Hmm.
we had not thought that was going to happen, but we were having like record time to close on our jobs.
Yeah, I can definitely see that happen, especially as once we get closer to a cure and a vaccination and the children are able to go to school and parents are able to work from home without a lot of that interruption or a lot of that homeschooling that they're doing. I think parents will be more productive as well. Okay, so what do we have now? Display the value you can bring to the organization. Yes, display the value that you can bring to the organization. Um, so let me ask you, Luke. Guys, if you have any more questions, please drop them. Any more questions or comments in the Zoom? I don't know why everyone on the Zoom is always quiet, and this is the place where I think you guys are so lucky because you have real-time access to the presenter. Facebook, there's like a 30 second to minute lag sometimes. But anyway, okay. So you served this country in the Marines, right?
Yes,
For a
ma'am.
number of years. Can you tell us, for people who are either looking to transition, whether from military or anywhere else, how did you identify your transferable skills for recruitment? And if you could tell us a couple of those
Yeah,
transferable
so
skills.
so for me, getting into recruiting, it was not, it's weird. A lot of people you talk to that are in recruiting, we just happen upon it. We
Hey.
don't, it's not something people necessarily, a lot of folks don't go, oh, hey, you know what, I'm going to go be a recruiter. It's something that you come across and you learn about and you're like, hey, that sounds interesting. For me, it was that I was having a hard time translating my skill set. I was in the Marine Corps, a very, very pigeonholed job. The basically the summarized version of what we did was we were subject matter experts on chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear warfare.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
So
It
how to
is
protect
very
against that,
narrow.
how to, stuff like that. And it's just not a whole lot
Mhm.
of direct translation. But what we did in the Marine Corps, for the most part, because it's a very small community, is we trained other Marines. And
Mhm.
so a lot of us develop very good interpersonal skills where we're able to communicate with, um, it's we're the people that run training for everyone from brand new at boot camp going through gas chamber for the first time through, you know, general level officers. I never worked with any generals, but
Mhm.
worked with colonels a lot. And, it's one of the, you've got to be comfortable communicating with people and communicating complex information to them that's, again, very specialized, very high level knowledge. And so it kind of gives you that, um, it gave me that comfort level just communicating with people. And then so when I came across my last company, it was geared towards veterans. I applied for a veteran program, went and met with the old recruiting manager, and he was like, hey, based on what you've said, I think you might be good for that. And went on board there, and it just happened to work out. And it's um, I don't know, it takes away that nerve factor where you're like scared of like talking to, it's a lot of people starting a job in the professional world might be, uncomfortable talking to a CEO or something, but you
Yeah.
just you lose that factor if you've done something like that. um but yeah, identifying soft skills, you want to look at those kind of things like that. You want to look at how you communicate with people. You want to look at, I mean, just how you operate really is what it would come down to. How you know, from start to finish, how you complete a job, how you complete a project is what I look at it as.
Okay. All right. So one of the things I take from that is it's not necessarily your main job that you're doing somewhere that will transfer, but it's everything you do to actually do the job, right? So you communicate it with very high level people, you communicate it very sensitive information, complex information, which is what you're doing when you're doing recruitment, right? With various different type of people. So you have to not just think about, well, you were dealing with chemicals and nuclear stuff, but that, okay, that's not transferable, but everything that I did to do that work, look at all of that stuff to figure out your transferable skills. I ask because we have a number of people in the group who are in a situation where either they want to transition, they have to transition because of unemployment or underemployment, or this is just a time for them to pivot because of the industry that they're in COVID, right? And they're having some challenges identifying those transferable skills. Now, you said soft skills, and we know that communication is one of them, and interpersonal skills is another. Do you have anything to say more about soft skills, whether what some more are, or how do you know what are soft skills? Because people know the hard skills. It's kind of difficult for people to put their hand on the soft skills.
Right. Yeah, and it really is. Soft skills are a tough one.
Hmm.
That's I'd say, I mean, just how you interact with a group, how you want to think about those kind of things. You want to think about, you know, if you're a manager, how do you manage? How do you supervise the people who are under you? What kind of what's your approaches with that? Those kind of things are going to be. I mean, with management, that's kind of in a weird middle ground between soft and hard skill, I guess, is how you work with people and how you supervise them. But soft skills is just such a broad term. It is hard to identify, and it takes a lot of kind of it's there's two things with it. You've got to sit and kind of look at yourself and kind of what's most important to you when you're doing your job. Where do you derive your value from with it? Um, and then you've got to look at the what's presented in a job description. It's take out the technical skill, take out all of the technical jargon that's with it. If you can learn that, do you think you can, you know, can you do the rest?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, and that again, some of that will come back down to writing job descriptions. You know, that's going to the other side of the
Yeah.
table here for some of it. Um, and great thing working with you know, it's I'd say, you know, from my industry, you know, working with recruiters, a lot of us, that's something we, you know, that's something a recruiter will do a lot of times is when they're taking a job order from a company, when they're kind of learning like, okay, well, what's the personality, what is the skill set, you know, what's the skill set, the background, the personality, and what kind of factors are you looking at, what's most important to you. When we're getting that from a hiring manager, we can kind of look for that in our candidates too. So when you're working with a candidate who is looking to switch, a recruiter a lot of times can identify that. There's a lot out there on soft skills. There's a lot of good reading on it, and it's I'd be more than happy to see if I can't find some of the articles that I've read on it before,
Okay.
and I will share that in the group.
I appreciate that. That would be very helpful, Luke. Okay, so uh, we have, what would you say that due to this crisis, would you say that due to the crisis, people with technical skills have a better chance of being hired opposed to the previous standard, which staunchly required a degree?
That's a great one. I have always I don't completely write off degrees. I
Okay.
don't have a college degree,
All right.
um, but I do think I've always thought that technical skills should be valued more, and I think right now it is proving to be the case a lot. It's someone who can, whether you've got the degree or not, if you can come in and show actionable, show that you can take that action, show that you've got those results, and show that you've got that experience, it's going to be very valuable now. And I think it really always has been, and I'm hoping that some of these hiring managers and different industries can kind of shift that
Yeah, it's
focus
going to be a
to
shift. Yeah.
I think we're going to see a very massive shift. I mean, there's so much going on. I mean, there's the coronavirus and everything else that's been happening in the world. 2020 has been wild.
Yes.
And I think we're going to hit a point where there's going to be just so many different shifts, so many different changes. And I don't think the world 5 years from now will be something that any of us ever expected to see it like.
Yeah.
Now, I think I'm not one of those, doomsayers who thinks we're going to stay, not seeing each other for the rest of, forever. But I do think I'm hoping that empathy and compassion will be something that do come to the forefront a lot more. If somebody tells you, hey, I don't feel well today, can I try to work from home? I'm hoping companies will continue to respect that. And, hey, my kid's sick, can I work from home? It's not so much a lost day for you.
Yeah.
I really think we're headed that direction.
I think so too. Yeah. I believe it was the presenter yesterday who said, this is probably the, Corona and everything that's gone on this year, 2020 so far, has been like a great equalizer. It didn't totally level the playing field, but I think it has caused people who don't usually operate in compassion and who are not as empathetic, that they have been affected, whether it was because someone had the virus or their business is affected or they see the children, like it is the great equalizer, like maybe, 9/11 people outside of the US said, well, that was them, or when there's a bomb in Beirut, we say that is them, or there was a tsunami, but this was the whole world has been affected by, COVID. And so there's a different mindset. And I hope, as you're saying, that we see a lot more compassion everywhere, but definitely in the workplace. I think we are.
I've seen a few people say that they think that's probably going to start being an interview question is, hey, what kind of impact did it have and what did you do to get through it? Because that's going to show your resiliency.
Yes.
And, whether that's those people that did, launch a side business and started, doing something that kept them afloat, or it's the people that just were, hey, I had to kind of change my outlook, change my perspective and do what I could to hold my mental health together. It proves that you can survive a hard, a struggle that is unprecedented on a global scale.
Yes, global. Yeah, not just national. So I have, okay, so this question is for me and it's for you too, Net. What do you classify as soft skills? So some of the soft skills I classify interpersonal skills, communication, being able to actively listen, initiative, being able to work as a part of a team. Let me see, any other ones you want to, there are a bunch of them. Leadership, and I don't just mean leadership, the leader being a leader, but being able to lead through a project, being able to lead on your team, take a lead on your team. There are times when you are not the leader or the supervisor or the manager, but it is required for you to lead through a project, right? It's required for you to show some emotional intelligence to get your peers to work with you, and so those are the things that oftentimes I don't think we can be taught them. Like you don't go to school to learn them. Another one is that I believe is a soft skill is being perceptive, being able to know, oh, this is not the right time for me to broach this subject, right? Either because something's going on with that person, you're a leader, or you notice that your coworker is not, they're not doing what they usually do, or they're not presenting the way they usually present. So to be perceptive, which takes a level of caring, right? You have to care about the people you work with to perceive that things are different. I don't know. Any more you want to add there?
Yeah, I mean, one thing, so that'll come back for me with military. One thing I always looked at with soft skills is they're going to be, I don't know, soft skills. It's easy to identify. Like when you're talking
Oh
to
yeah.
somebody, it's a lot easier for me to look at you and tell especially if I know you, like, oh, hey, here's what I think your soft skills are.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to do that, but it's very hard to do it for yourself
Yes, it
unless
is.
you've practiced it.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, when I was getting out and applying for jobs, a lot of the stuff I was coming back to were, the Marine Corps got its leadership traits, leadership principles, and stuff like that. And it's just, stuff like decisiveness, integrity, stuff like that. Those are some of the different
Yes.
factors that make sense and are applicable. But it's just knowing it's knowing who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
that is good. And it's funny because I'm older than you. I tell you, I'm 46. I'm older than you, Luke, right? And I'm a New Yorker. And I am the oldest child, right? So you know where I'm going here, right? I am very direct. And I had to learn very early in my career that being direct is good, but you also have to be sensitive. And that is a soft skill. Being able to know you can still be direct and you can still get to the point of something without making someone feel bad, without being short with people. And I had to actually work on that. Right. So sometimes, too, a soft skill is allowing people to express themselves in the way that they need to express themselves. Right. So I need it, right? But you might need to tell me the story and I may need to let you do that, right? I need to meet you at your level of need sometimes. And then if that isn't working for the organization, appropriately coach you in a better way, but not just shut you down. So there's a lot of soft skills in answer to that question. That was Rhonda. There are so many of them, but I think, Luke, you hit it right. Just hit it, like knowing yourself. You
yeah.
know, if you know yourself, and I know that was what was off-putting for me with people, was she's very direct. I could scare someone. I'm so direct, and people are not as direct. And so I had to figure out if what is really important is getting the job done and helping to achieve our mission, then I can tailor my delivery in a way that I can get response from not just people who work under me, but my peers and my supervisors. So.
And yeah, and that's again, it's I try not to just always talk about military, but that's one of the things that I took away from the military that I take very personally. Um, one of the leadership principles is know yourself and seek self improvement. From the Marine Corps, that's one of the things,
Wow.
and it's a very, for me, that's a very I mean that's just huge. If you know where you're lacking and you approach that, then I mean that's gonna solve so many problems. And it's not even necessarily always. It's not always, oh well, I know I'm lacking there, so I need to force myself into that. Sometimes it's just knowing that if you're lacking in that spot, surround yourself with somebody who's strong there that you can call on
Yes.
it. And
Yes.
it's my wife and I have that conversation. She's
Yeah.
very type A and very like,
Mhm.
she's in management and very like type A with her employees and stuff. And I am not necessarily as much of a like, I'm gonna sit here and like, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this. I'm one of those, I'm going to teach everybody how to do something. I'm going to give a mission and we're all going to start working on it. And it's weird that we've never worked together, but that comes into play at home. It does.
It does. We are who we
And
are at work and at home. Yeah.
exactly. And it's when you surround yourself with people that complement that, it's going to lend itself to some very good things. You never want to be the smartest person in the room. You never want to be the smartest person at the table. You want to be able to learn and grow. That's why, I follow so many people that are in the recruiting business that have been doing it for a long time, because it's what I want to do and it's what I want to keep doing, and I want to learn from them. It's something my dad told me when I was young is, if you want success in what did he say? It's like, if you want success in a certain area of your life and somebody who has that success in that area is talking, shut up and listen.
Yeah, well, you guys know you're gonna see that posted up, right? I'm gonna repost that one. Right, let me see what we have here. And then, okay, thank you for the clarification. You need to be able to force it. Got it. Right now it's feeling like the Jetsons cartoon. Yeah, it is, right? In the world. All right. So before I even go to my 3 questions that I have for you people, if you have any comments or questions, I'm getting a lot of likes, a lot of loves. Please drop them. And then you said Adam Belkek. I love him. Okay, I love him. Yeah. And guys, whoever is doing the LinkedIn homework that this week, that was one of the influencers that we said you should follow, that Lucic suggested that you follow. So he will be there. I'll go over the homework tomorrow. And then if there's anyone else that you're following you think would add value, please share that with us in the group, Luke. Now, because you are a recruiter, I'm asking you this question. Just in general, is there one piece of advice would you give to job seekers now? Just anything.
Yeah, right now, I think the name of the game is going to be strategy. I've shared it with you, I believe. There's a post I put out on LinkedIn a few months ago where I told, that one was specifically geared towards veterans who are getting out. You don't want accuracy by volume at this point. You want well-placed rounds, is what I was telling you. That's what I told them. But basically with that, you want to make sure that you're doing all of the things that I've seen some of the presenters have talked about before. If you're utilizing LinkedIn, you want to make sure that it's put together well, you're interacting, and you're networking. And networking is not connecting with somebody and then immediately sending them a page long, hey, I'm looking to work for you doing this, and this. Now if they've got something out there, like I know that Paige had, with her post earlier, yes, she had said something about that. That's different. That's somebody soliciting those responses. But you don't. It's just like sales. It's not all about me. It's here's what I want to do for you, and it comes back down to what I was saying earlier. It's a relationship. That there's that one. When you're getting ready to send that resume, do the tailoring, provide the results. Resumes, a lot of times you get somebody will put where they worked, what their title was, and then a bulleted out job description. And I'm guilty of that. I've done that before.
I think we all have.
That needs to change. That needs to shift. You want to have your results that you have done, because it's when the hiring manager or the recruiter or whoever it is that's looking at your resume is seeing it, they're going to say, what's in it for me? Yeah. What can you bring to the table? And you want to put your best foot forward. It kind of circling back to the LinkedIn thing. I just changed on my personal LinkedIn profile, a profile picture, because my old profile picture was one I took in my truck when I first joined LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Now I got up one day, I was like, hey, I've got a good accent wall in my house. I'm going to go stand in front of it in a suit and take a picture. It's just all, you want to make that good impression. There's just so many, there's so many people with such great advice out there, and you want to connect and develop relationships, and you want to make sure that you understand what you're doing, not blind applying. And I saw one out there, one strategy, I can't remember who it was, but they're one of the very big career coaches on LinkedIn. When you're applying to jobs, if you're applying to several at a time, put together that you have on it in like a spreadsheet or a Word doc or something, where it's
Yes.
like, I applied to, Microsoft to be a software developer on this
Mhm.
team, and here's the details, and here's the contact, and then
Yes.
track it as it goes. And you want to do the follow-up. You want to, after you've applied, if they've got the recruiter, if you're applying through LinkedIn, a lot of times they have a recruiter listed. If you click on that person, send them an email and say, hi, I saw that you were listed as the point of contact for this position. I recently sent an application and I'd like to talk about it if you have some time. Easy, simple, and yeah, and follow up. And then, I mean, there's no harm. It's, as a recruiter, we do it, so there's no harm in a job seeker doing it. I don't think. If you can get a phone number, give them a call. If you can find their email, send them an email, and send them an email, and just cover all your bases.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
I
great way to
love
go.
it. All right, I'm gonna go to my questions, except unless I see something else. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room. Yes, even the playing field never thought of that. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my questions now. I have my 3 questions that I ask everyone. All right, Luke. And I want to say thank you, Luke. Everyone, Luke just recently started his new job. So I was telling him wait until he got a little settled and he was ready to go. So that's why we're going. So I appreciate you giving us this time as you are, getting settled yourself. And it's a Saturday. All right. So Luke, CDPD's mission is to increase marginalized groups' access to employment opportunities and representation in the workforce by providing our members with mentorship, and other resources. CDPD was created in response to record unemployment and underemployment rates stemming from the COVID-19 pandemic. Would you say that you have ever been marginalized? If so, how? And you need any more definition? You need any clarification?
Marginalized is a very,
It's broad.
it's broad and it's relative.
Mm-hmm.
I felt it's kind of, for me, it's complicated saying that, because when I came out of the military, I at that time I would have told you I was that, as a military veteran, not having a degree, whatever, that I was. But there is also, it's, again, if y'all are connected with me on LinkedIn, you've seen me sharing from I can't think of his name at the moment, but there was a book just recently released for military veterans transitioning. And one of the things it emphasizes is we do bring a lot on ourselves. There's a lot of mindset and entitlement with military veterans that, oh, well, I was in the military, I deserve, everything under the sun. And I don't know that I necessarily had that going on, that full attitude, but there was some things I just didn't know what I was doing as far as resume writing and interviewing. But I think at some point everybody's probably experienced it to some degree or another.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, and I think that sometimes we're just marginalized by what we don't know. So that's it in a nutshell. Like, if I don't know, then I'm not part of the status quo. I don't know how to operate in these environments. I don't know what the norm is. So I'm at the margin there. But there's so many ways. And I ask the question, I tell everyone I ask the question because I want everyone in the group to know, or anyone that watches this on YouTube to know, that in spite of whatever it is, if it is something very obvious like race or ethnicity or disability, or if it's something that no one sees, like someone who is no longer short told us that they were marginalized because they were short as a kid, right? And so that stuck with that person. Annie Lee, who came into the group a couple of weeks ago and who'll be coming back, said, yes, I'm a white woman, but I was marginalized in workplaces. They told me to be quiet. They wouldn't let me talk. So there are all different kinds of ways you can be marginalized, and it can change. And it's not something that we do to ourselves. I think that people put us in a place, in a space, but we can fight and get out of that pace and a space. And so that's why I asked that question. Okay, so my second question is, What would you say? I don't know how old you are. You don't have to tell me how old you are. All right. But what would you say to Luke, based on everything that you know now, either about your career, right? But either maybe when you went into the military or when you with your younger version of yourself, what would you say? What kind of advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, if I could go back to when I was getting out, I have a ton of things that I would tell myself when I was getting out of
Okay.
the military. Um, and one of the, it's for me, it was I needed to eat a slice of humble pie. As I can't remember who I heard say humble pie at first, but
Mm-hmm.
it's it's just knowing you got to know that you don't know what you don't know.
Mm.
And it's I was maybe a little arrogant and maybe had a chip on my shoulder when I got out, and that I would tell myself that. I would have told myself to not stay in North Carolina when I got out because that's where I was then, and I
Yeah.
moved to a very small town and then started looking for work, and that
Oh, yeah.
did not add up very well. Um, and then just part of one of the biggest struggles I think I had when I got out was that I didn't tell anyone about the struggles I was having. I didn't talk to anybody. I
Ah,
wasn't
yes.
open about anything I struggled with, and that was a big problem for me for about the first 6 months after I got out, is that I wouldn't talk about anything. Um, and you've got to be willing to. I mean, and not that you want to dive down your rabbit hole of everything you're struggling with when you're in a job interview, but lean on your network, lean on the people around you. It took me coming home, and I lived with my parents when I moved back to Houston, and it took a lot of conversations with my dad and with my now wife to get me through a lot of the struggles that I was having at the time.
Wow. I like that. And that's a reoccurring theme. To talk to people and also to ask for help is a reoccurring thing that we've heard from our presenters.
And
Um,
we're in
even
such a time for it too. It's again, like we've been talking about, empathy is kind of running the show now. Um, that, and then one other thing that I would say too, to tell myself, is that self-awareness piece. Sit down and do some introspection
mm,
when you are having when I don't know, that's a good thing to just be an ongoing. I mean,
yeah, just
you should never
self-reflection.
quit.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's, I mean, there's so much that's happened that's been eye-opening for me since I got out, and just this last year has been eye-opening as well, and it's just a
Yeah.
good thing to do. It's just make sure that you're constantly self-evaluating, and you know what you know and what you don't, and you know what's going on with you.
Yeah. Okay, I love it. All right, and my final is, what would you like to leave us with today? Is it just, anything that you want, that I definitely want you to take away, even if you said it already or if it's something new, but I want you guys to take away this.
Yeah, I mean, I'd give two things.
Okay.
There's when you're looking for a job, whether it's in the application process, writing your resume, or interviewing or follow up, it's all going to come back down to your strategy and to, again, putting your best foot forward. And my other thing that I've told everybody is your value does not come from your job. Your value does not
Mm,
come from your bank account, your paycheck, your house, your car. Your value comes from who you are as a person.
mm.
And if you know that and you have that confidence, your confidence will shine through.
Oh, I love it. All right, let me just look one really quickly, in case we have anything here. Um, I hope this is not too personal, but how is the crisis affecting you? You are providing great information and seem to be very humble. Everyone who has presented on this platform has been so humble and inspirational. Perhaps the crisis has changed our demeanor in a good way, right? You don't have to answer. We think you've shared a lot here. Okay, so I don't have any more. No, I don't. Okay, and I probably will as soon as we log off, Luke. I want to just say thank you. I truly appreciate you. I appreciate you for being as open as you've been today. It takes a level of knowing yourself, as you said, to share some of the things that you said. We're strangers, you know, and we are just LinkedIn connections. I really appreciate you. I know that you've just gone through your own transition. You're starting a new job. And I think it just takes a lot of just great character to say, I want to come out here and help others. So thank you so much, Luke. Everyone, if you are not connected with Luke, I will be posting his LinkedIn contact information. When you reach out to him, let him know that you heard him today and tell him something that resonated with you, and also thank him for being a friend of CDPD. Thank you, Luke, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Is there anything you'd like to say?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, just everybody feel free to reach out LinkedIn. I am pretty much, I'm fairly often in the group on Facebook as well. So I try to, post stuff in there and do things that contribute. And
You do.
if you got any questions or anything, I mean, I'm always available to talk. So
I appreciate you. I really, really do. Thank you, Luke. Enjoy the rest of
that's,
your weekend.
thank you. You too.
All right, then. Bye-bye.
Bye.